So many people are happy for the downfall of Raleigh Romero last night, and we're going to talk about it. So by the time you're watching this, somewhere around Easter Sunday, March 31st, 2024, and last night's two major events in combat sports, UFC Atlantic City, which delivered a great card, and what do you expect from the UFC when they constantly put on the best fights and the constant 50-50 matchups on top of the fact that, well, there's a certain competitive architecture in the UFC where it lends itself to these types of results. But nonetheless, I wanted to talk about the boxing match last night and why a lot of people are so happy that Raleigh Romero lost. And by the way, this goes back to such subjects that deal with, let's say, Colby Covington losing to Leon Edwards after saying some really horrible things towards his father, and not only that, losing in the process and people burying him for it. For example, a lot of people said after the Colby Covington fight, man, he should have not said that about Leon Edwards. He really shouldn't. And again, it's very distasteful for you to go out and talk about somebody's dead father or family member or anybody that's passed away, period, and then use it as some sort of promotion for a fight. By the way, a fight in which Donald Trump had attended, and by the way, the disgust on his face as Colby Covington was losing cage side really told the tale of the tape in that particular aspect. But also, not to overshadow the great main event of boxing's welterweight or super middleweight, junior middleweight division last night, Sebastian Fedora and Tim Tszyu. Obviously, the fight was a great fight. It was very bloody. It was a back and forth affair. But quite frankly, I think the co-main event between Isaac Cruz and Raleigh Romero sort of overshadowed that entire main event. And by the way, that fight in and of itself really, or that entire card, was a two main event type of scenario because of the type of attention that Raleigh Romero had basically garnered from around the world due to his personality, due to his trash talking. But guess what? It all failed and it all came crashing down. And as a result, people came out in droves to give him absolute hell for it. And why? Because you got to understand something. Here's something you have to understand by human nature. As Muslims, we understand there is a certain level of humility that you must practice. This is absolutely true. You have to do this. But when it comes to combat sports and when it comes to, let's say, trash talking or trying to build up entertainment, there's a certain aspect that may cross the line, but then there's just certain aspects where you can tell that, yes, this person is just trying to be entertaining. So I'm going to tell you why I was so motivated to make this video. A buddy of mine in England named Michael Kelly, by the way, a guy who has previously trained with Anthony Joshua. And what's interesting about that, obviously, we all know the type of hate that Anthony Joshua gets, even though he displayed himself as sort of a humble human being. But yet, when he lost, people wanted to give him hell for it. Why? Let me explain something to you about human nature. When you're children, you build up blocks of, let's say, Legos, right? You stack them up to the ceiling. And then when you do, what do with it? You knock it over. Why? Because this is human nature. You build things up to knock it down in its most primitive form that you can see from a toddler, a baby, and anybody that has a non-developed mind. But when you become adults, I think this is the process of where you start internalizing this and sort of reflecting upon it as a mirror in your everyday life and how you interact with people as a result of these combat sports events where you see a guy that is so confident, so boisterous, so boastful, and somehow parts of you really feel bad that this guy has all the confidence in the world, because let's just be honest, the majority of human beings are introverts. There are more introverts than there are extroverts. Now, here's the thing about the corporate world and your current workplace and all of these environments that you can relate to outside of sports, combat sports, and the world of Hollywood and entertainment. those guys that are extroverts usually are the ones that get promoted into corporations, in your workplace. They are the ones whose work gets recognized over the people that are a little bit more quiet. And that's just the reality of it. So I think there is a human nature inside of us that, yes, I understand there is a righteousness in being humble, and 100% I am for this type of ideology, especially as a Muslim. We have to follow this. But in the world of professional sports and entertainment, and the fact that you want to make money and the fact that you want to garner attention, sometimes you have to do a little bit of type of extra type of activities in order to garner that type of attention. And Raleigh is no different. Colby Covington is no different. Conor McGregor is no different. And anybody else that you were compelled to watch a pay-per-view, they weren't any different. Let me read to you what my buddy Michael Kelly had wrote, which I think is really important to sort of point out here, right? So he wrote, nah, this is some BS. People are just taking a great pleasure in Raleigh getting knocked out and losing his world title. Absolutely, they are. Okay, why? Why is he so hated? Well, Michael, I'm sort of explaining that right now while I'm reading your post that you tagged me in, because he's naturally just like a super duper confident and very happy and cheerful disposition. Is that it? For F's sakes, Michael said. He can't help how he was born. And what's wrong with that anyway? He's a young athlete, was a world champion in his prime, who grew up in Floyd Mayweather's gym surrounded by stars. Why wouldn't he be happy? He hasn't actually done anything bad to anyone apart from provide the public and the boxing community with plenty of laughs and jokes. I haven't seen the level of ridicule since David Price lost to Tony Thompson, or Audley Harrison losing to Danny Williams. Another great pair of guys who've done nothing wrong to deserve such hate. That people love to see downfalls. Just what I mentioned about children building blocks earlier, right? You build them up, and all of a sudden, what do? You go and you knock it down. Another great pair of people who love to see downfalls. For F's sakes, it's really not. It's really not on. LOL. When real bastards like Antonio Margarito lose, nobody takes a piss at him, and his behind is a whole lot worse. For F's sakes. And I quote Michael Kelly. So again, shout out to Michael Kelly. He always has something very entertaining to bring up. And this is the reason why I was motivated to make this video, because I thought about it and I said to myself, wow, this makes a whole lot of sense, but I sort of understand from a psychological point of view why a lot of people want to take this particular route in basically taking, taking a piss out of Raleigh. So one guy wrote here, says Musa Malik, right? He says, maybe if he was humble and the public's reaction might have been more subtle. He's right. He's right about that. But remember what I said about Colby Covington and all the other guys in the past that have been beaten after they had, let's say, a little bit of a boisterous pre-game promotion, right? People love to do that. They said, oh, well, he should have been talking smack. He should have been saying this. He should have been saying that. But guess what? You look at the numbers of people that have watched these fights where people do take a piss at these particular athletes, right? Who trash talk and basically promote themselves in sometimes a very negative way. Let's just be honest about it. There's a lot of negativity that's involved in that. But of course, there's levels to this negativity, okay? There's Colby Covington that goes out of his way to diss the deceased father of Leon Edwards. And then there's Raleigh Romero, who has this boisterous confidence in saying, I'm going to knock this guy out. He gets hit easily. Only for the wife of Caleb Plant, Jordan Plant, who was the announcer, the ring announcer, or one of the hosts of the event, ask him in the post-fight, hey, you said that it was going to be easy to hit him, or this and that. And of course, what did Raleigh do? He went on the mic and said, hey, listen, happy Easter to everybody. I'm going to be back. I'm going to rise from this or this and that. Okay, fair enough. Now he's actually showing you his human side. Similar to Colby Covington, what exactly did he do after the Leon Edwards fight? He then went on to deflect it away from his situation and basically promote Trump in saying, yeah, in 2024, we're going to win or this and that. Listen, I get it. Trump has his own fight to deal with the federal government, with an election coming up, and then you just lost the fight. He's here as a fan to support you, to relax, to watch a few fights, including yours. And again, it had nothing to do with Trump other than the fact that Colby Covington just wanted to ride off into his name and also deflect away from any negative attention away from him. He's done this plenty of times. How about in the Kamaru Usman fight? He talked about Kamaru Usman's father once again getting incarcerated, saying all types of things about Kamaru Usman, saying something to the effect of, well, I have the president call me or this and that. Whoever hit you up when you want to fight your tribe in Africa or this and that, as basically saying xenophobic comments regarding Kamaru Usman's background from Nigeria, coming from Nigeria. So again, what did he do after that fight when he got his face and his jaw busted up by Kamaru Usman back in 2019? He ran to the back without even addressing the crowd, talking to them. And as a result, he just put his head down because he knew that the amount of scrutiny that he was going to face from the trash talk was going to come back his way. Now, look, I'm not here to debate with you whether they deserve it or not. That's for your own opinion, and that's for your own subjective matter at hand to decide. But what I will say is that this is a psychological matter in terms of why a lot of people are happy for it. Now, look, as a Muslim and as somebody who admires Khabib, has admired the likes of George St. Pierre, has admired the likes of Lennox Lewis, has admired the likes of very many humble champions in the past, including Arthur Beterbiev in the current space of time in boxing, I would much prefer guys that are a lot more humble, right? Obviously, because that coincides more with my Islamic ideology, my Islamic identity, and also what I would believe is a lot more pleasing to Allah and in terms of worshiping in that kind of matter, right? Okay, but when it comes to combat sports, I don't fault other people for trying to do it, to drum up attention, to drum up interest. And simply, here's something that we have to really look at and understand. Why are we attracted to this, right? Because if Raleigh, and by the way, if I got off the tangent from what I was originally going to make a point at, you got to understand that what I was trying to say earlier is that if Raleigh didn't do that, none of you would really pay attention to this fight. This is the reality of it. Last night, the UFC card was great because, like I said, these types of organizations, this particular sport of MMA lends itself to constant, exciting action and exciting results as how it would unfold in the way that it does, in the way that it always will be in every week. But it was just another fight night, headlined by two women that, quite frankly, are not known to anybody outside of the MMA space. However, what won last night, and not even the main event itself, which, by the way, was exciting, the Sebastian Fedora and the Tim Tszyu fight, what won last night was the Raleigh Romero and the Isaac Cruz fight. Now, by the way, shout outs to Isaac Cruz and all the Mexicans in the United States and in Mexico and around the world for them having a champion that they can be proud of, right? A guy who goes out there and fights his heart out, and not only that, came out on top with a very important match in his life, right? And then winning a world title as a result of it. Great. But let's just be honest. That entire fight was carried by Raleigh Romero. And I would also argue that that entire card in and of itself was carried by Raleigh Romero. Why? Because of the interest that he had drum up to garner your attention. Now, you can pretend and say, well, you know what? I'm a purist boxing fan. I'm a purist MMA fan. I just prefer guys to fight and not talk and this and that. Okay, that's great. That's you. But I think the overall conversation and the overall debate that we have to have is this. What kind of society do we live in today? I think that is the reflection that we have to ponder upon. And why do I say that? For one, take this in a serious consideration. Why is it that somebody like Conor McGregor, even though he had lost to Khabib and lost to a whole lot more better fighters than himself, a lot more popular than Dustin Poirier, and a lot more popular than Khabib combined? Why is that? I'm going to tell you why. Because people, even though they hate people that are full of confidence, they also love them at the same time. I'm going to tell you why. Because people like Conor McGregor, people like Romero, people like Colby Covington are the guys that secretly inside you want to be at some point. Not all the time, at some point. You want to be like them. When? When do you want to become like them? And this is where a conversation really gets interesting after a 16-minute point of explaining to you why a lot of people are happy that Rolly Romero lost. I'm going to tell you why this is important. You want to be like these people when you get cut off in traffic. What do you think Conor McGregor would do if he got cut off in traffic? He would fire up that certain part of his brain that initiates combat, that initiates hostility, that initiates the most primitive instinct in man when it comes to peacocking, when it comes to showing who's boss, when it comes to showing who the top dog is and who the alpha of the room is. Many of you, secret inside, not all of you, but a good portion of you, really wish you were this person. But in reality, a lot of you, this is what a lot of you would do. If you get cut off in traffic, you would give the middle finger. Not all, I wouldn't. I really don't care. I'm not one of these people that gets angry and road rages by any means of anyone's imagination. Not one bit. I could care less. It is no concern to me. If I'm driving somewhere for a purpose, and that is my purpose, and your existence in that particular day truly doesn't matter to me at any point in my life. Really, I'm being honest. It doesn't matter. You don't matter to me, other than the fact that, of course, we all want to be safe on the road. But most of you would throw the middle finger at somebody that cut you off, or somebody that, let's say, almost hit you, or this and that, or didn't give you a turn signal. You would do absolutely that. Why? Because you're sitting behind a car, literally a weapon that is armored, protecting you from the safety of what that person can personally do to you. Whereas with somebody like Conor McGregor, somebody like Rolly Romero, even somebody like myself, if I really wanted to press the issue, I would pull you out of that car and I would run the fade with you right then and there. No questions asked. Why? Because that's just my personality. That's just how I'm built. That's just the ethos and what I live by, because I choose not to be a coward. I choose not to be a coward, but I also choose not to entertain this particular BS. And that right there is what most people wish they could be. But you can't. You want to know why? Because the majority of you are cowards. And this is not a knock on anybody. The majority of people around the world are cowards. I know that this is breaking news that a lot of people don't want to hear, but the majority of you are cowards. You don't want to admit it. You don't like to face it. And many of you don't go out and challenge yourselves on a daily basis. You don't go out and try to better yourselves. You avoid the hard workouts. You avoid waking up in the morning. You avoid doing the runs. You avoid doing the weightlifting sessions. You avoid going to the gym to spar to potentially better yourself if and when you could potentially get in a street fight. A lot of you avoid that. A lot of you avoid confrontation. A lot of you avoid face-to-face confrontation, which is why you give the middle finger when you're driving in a car rather than getting out of the car and saying, "What's up, homie? What's up? You got a problem? What do you want to do? Huh? What do you want to do?" Most of you are not built like that. And I know that that right there is hard for a lot of you to swallow, but this is the truth. Why? Why are most of you not built like that? Well, for the same exact reason that I had just mentioned. And by the way, I'm getting to Raleigh in this particular point in the subject matter at hand. Before you think that I'm going off the tangent, there's something to this, right? Most of you don't want to put in that work that I had mentioned. Most of you wish that you were tough guys. This is what most of you do when you don't like something. Oh man, I'm going to go and beat this dude's behind. Okay, but the majority of you, do any of you train? And again, to the guys that train and to the guys that are actual fighters and to the guys that are actual warriors and gangsters, I'm not talking to you here. I'm talking to the majority of people in the world. Because the majority of people in the world are the ones that are happy that Raleigh Romero lost last night. And as a result, they hate on a guy that is willing to do things that they are not willing to do. You also hate on people, by the way, that go out of their way and exuberate a certain level of confidence. You hate that because you're not one. You're also the type of people that will go out of your way and criticize others based on something that you're not willing to do. I'm going to tell you, in the comment section the other day, I had somebody, I believe in one of my videos that I had made. It was regarding the Roadhouse video. I'm going to read to you the comment that this person wrote, right? And I'm going to show you how all of this relates to this topic and matter at hand, right? Because again, the main topic here is that most of you are not willing to do the hard work, and therefore you are afraid of confrontation. You're afraid of trying anything new. You're afraid of taking risks. You're afraid of doing things that other people are not afraid of doing, such as Raleigh Romero, Conor McGregor, and anybody that is willing to put themselves out there in any dire situation. So the Roadhouse video that I had made, obviously check out the Roadhouse video that I had made right here. It's this video right here, right? The subliminal message behind Roadhouse. So let me read to you one of the comments, okay, that I had mentioned here, okay? So this person writes, you keep repeating the same words, but you're not really explaining what you mean by gentrification or rich versus poor, right, etc., and not giving any examples from the movie. Okay, well, for one, you got to understand whoever this person is, and I don't want to name your names because you might probably sue me as a result of that. So I'm just going to say it like this, right? I wasn't trying to spoil the movie. The movie was fresh when I did this video. So as a result, I'm not going to give you any details. I'm just going to give you generalization that literally the movie is about gentrification and rich versus poor. But for whatever reason, this person just felt the need to go out and make these comments on my video in order to feel better about themselves. So moving on, they said, you're just saying nonsense in a loop. I'll approve it in a group. And by the way, the reason why this person is saying that is because I posted this on a chat group, right? So just to give context on what they're saying. But dude, this is embarrassing. This person had the nerve to say this is embarrassing. So this is what I wrote, right? In all humbleness and also in humility, just so you can understand how I approach this situation. I wrote, thanks for the honesty. I'm also not trying to spoil certain plots of the movie, especially for those who have yet to see it. This movie is only 2 days old, which is literally the truth of the matter when I made that movie reacting to the Roadhouse, right? So this is what this person writes, because now they're backed up against the wall and I've literally told them the reality of this situation. Well, I appreciate your efforts. I don't think I could produce a video or channel. You have more bravery than me. Exactly. Exactly the point that I'm trying to make. Okay? Let me read to you again what this person wrote. Okay? Let me adjust this. The person wrote, again, just so you understand the point that I'm trying to make with this video. I appreciate your efforts. I don't think I could produce a video or a channel. And lastly, the person said, you have more bravery than me. So you understand where I'm coming from? So, by the way, I quoted a Theodore Roosevelt quote here, and this is what I wrote. Well, obviously, I just quoted it first, and then I said that this was from Theodore Roosevelt. So, it is not the critique who counts, not the man who points out how strong the man stumbles or where the door of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. And I quote by Theodore Roosevelt. And so I wrote to this person to continue on because I wanted to basically slag this person off for being an absolute idiot. And of course, I had to put my 2 cents into this whole matter. I wrote, when you are the man of the arena, you must have bravery to take criticism. This is me saying this now, right? To take criticisms as well as adjust to objective natures of helpful advice. A couple of important facts to disclose. Number one, I'm fasting for Ramadan, which means I filmed this video less than a couple of hours as I wrote this comment. My sugar level is low, and that means I'm not going to be at my best. I still carried on because we are in the business of generating views, and this topic of Roadhouse movie was currently on high demand with the MMA YouTube community. Number two, content creating is about branding yourself to an ethos people will recognize and identify on a consistent basis. My branding is consistent towards not editing my videos, and some people identify that as a positive content, sort of the authentic feeling. And I also wrote number three, the culture of MMA, but sports in general, is about adjusting your past mistakes while also having a fan base forgiving you for those losses, especially in MMA. Obviously, MMA is a lot more forgiving in losses than they are in boxing, but nonetheless, both inside and outside of the field of competition. So